Okay, hi everyone, welcome. My name is Brielle Rosati and I am the Program Director of IS 183 Art School. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's Artist Talk with Melanie Mowinski. This talk is part of our World Collage Day celebration, and I'd like to thank those of you who joined us throughout the day and who are here with us now. To start, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about IS 183 Art School. We're a nonprofit community art school based in Stockbridge, and our mission is to provide hands-on experiences in the visual arts to people of all ages, all incomes, and all skill levels. We offer studio-based programs in multiple disciplines year-round, both in person and online. And we also just announced our summer class lineup, which you can find and register for now online at is183.org. I'd also like to let you know that after this talk, the 97 Collage Project will be hosting a Collage Club meeting. The prompt is by Melanie Mowinski and inspired by tonight's talk and her work. I hope that you'll join us. And if you haven't registered already, you can do that at is183.org. And I'll, after this talk, send you a confirmation email with the Zoom access so that you can join in. Before I introduce Melanie, I just want to go over a few housekeeping notes. So please just be sure that you're muted while Melanie is presenting. And then also if you have any background noise. There will be a Q&A following the presentation. So if you have any questions throughout, you're welcome to add those to the chat. You can also add any questions to the chat during the Q&A itself, or you can write your name in the chat and I'll know that that means that you want to be called upon. So either I'll read the question out for you if you put it in the chat, or you're welcome to read out your own question. And lastly, as I mentioned, we're recording this presentation and recording has already started. So now I'd like to welcome Melanie Mowinski to our virtual stage. Melanie lives and works in the Berkshires, where she's a professor of art at the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts. She holds an MFA from the University of Arts in Philadelphia and an MAR from Yale University. Tonight, Melanie will be discussing exploring the figure in collage, and she'll share highlights from her upcoming book, Collage Your Life, Techniques, Prompts, and Inspirations for Creative Self-Expression and Storytelling. And she'll also share examples of collages by contributors and others who use the figure in collage. She'll also reveal the sources of some of her own figurative images in collage. So thank you all for joining us tonight, and I will turn things over to Melanie.
Great. Thank you so very much, Brielle. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I want to begin by having a number of thanks to IS 183 for inviting me to give this talk, to my own institution, MCLA, and we have a program called The Mind's Eye. I gave a talk earlier this week on Tuesday, and Karen was there with me, and it really helped me figure out some things. And I'm really grateful to that opportunity and that conversation that I had with Karen. It was really, really, really great. I want to thank Storey Publishing for making this possible, for believing in this book. And my past teachers, my family and friends, they really are the people who have made, who encourage me. I'm going to cry. There's my friend Andrea, who's been like by my side for over like 35 years, something like 34 years, is here on the screen. So it's just really great. Anyways, thank you, all of you, for being here. I'm not sure how you all feel about this, but I would love, since we're a small group, I would love to know who's in the room. And maybe you could just say your name and one thing that you would like to celebrate today. So for example, I'm Melanie, and well, I'm going to back up. My husband and I watch basketball. I don't know if any of you watch basketball, but the Inside the NBA with Charles Barkley and Ernie Johnson, Shaq, and Kenny, the fact that I know all these basketball players cracks me up. But they had this thing where they were making a spoof on The Office, and they were making fun of Kevin Durant. And so Doug and I now sing it. It was this whole thing about The Office where they go, my name is, and they sing. I'm going to do it. You don't have to do this, but I'm just doing this to entertain you, really. So my name is Melanie, and that's my name. They call me Melanie because that's my name. So Doug and I do this like all the time. But anyways, my name is Melanie. Whenever I say my name is Melanie, that song comes into my head now. My name is Melanie, and the thing I would like to celebrate today is right now here in Western Massachusetts, it's that the spring is climbing up the mountain, And I love watching it climb up the mountain where it just slowly gets greener and greener and greener. And so that's what I'd like to celebrate today. So I invite you to unmute yourself and introduce yourself and one thing that you like to celebrate today.
My name is Pat. I'm here in Chicago, and I'm going to celebrate spring also. This has been the coldest, darkest spring in 65 years in Chicago. And it's finally warmed up, and the trees are just starting to open now. So hallelujah.
Thank you for coming, Pat. It's nice to see your face again.
Thank you.
My name is Lucy, and I'm the director of IS 183 behind this logo. And I want to celebrate this amazing community of artists and the community that we build each day, whether it's World Collage Day or not.
My name is Karen Arp Sandell. I'm coming into this room from Canaan, New York. And I would like to celebrate this coming together that we've been experiencing today for Collage. And I would like to celebrate that we can do that through Zoom and in person.
Thank you.
My name is Katie Malone Smith, and I'm here in the Berkshires, and I am celebrating World Collage Day.
Hi, everybody. I'm Darlene Sardinsky. Katie, you took mine. I should have gone earlier, but I just wanted to celebrate I've had so much fun today, and I've met some great women, and it's just been fantastic. Such a great day.
My name is Donna, and I am celebrating being back live in class with Karen today on Collage, World Collage Day. Yay! I'm happy to be here for a lecture tonight, Melanie.
Thank you.
So I'm Andrea. Hi, Melanie's friend. I'm celebrating a day of academic writing and transitioning into a wonderful creative evening with you all. Happy to be here. And hello from Antigua.
Hi, I'm also Katie, and I'm in the Berkshires. And since since he was very insistent on getting some of my attention, I'll celebrate my dog, George.
Oh, that's like great. I love the name George. Love it.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike. I live in Avon, Connecticut, and I'm celebrating World Collage Day. This is my 4th event today, so.
Excellent.
And then more to come.
Nice.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for Bria, what are you celebrating today?
So a lot of things. First of all, being here and just really excited to see this talk and have this kind of come full circle and be back another year with World Collage Day. And then also I got to spend some really nice time in the sunshine today near a lake, which was just beautiful. So I've been waiting for that moment since, it's been, like somebody said, a really dark, cold spring. So
It's true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. It's nice to have names and hear your voices and to see who's in this virtual room with me. So I really appreciate all of you coming and spending part of your Saturday evening with me. So I'm going to begin. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. All right. So thank you very much. And my talk today is Body Double, the figure in collage. And Bria already pretty much talked a little bit about it, but one thing I do want to let you know, I received my advanced copy of my book today in the mail, and I haven't opened the envelope yet. So at the end of our time together, I'm going to open it up on the screen so you all will get to have that first preview with me of the actual book. And you can see, look, it is still sealed. I haven't opened the book yet. I've been waiting for, so I'm super excited for that. So you get to all be there with me. Let's see. So, I already did say some thank yous. And one thing I want to acknowledge is this is a phrase, a mantra that I say a lot: practice takes practice. This is the kind of the dedication page of the book. And we can come back to we'll come back to mantras a little bit later. But I love what this meant for me, what it means for me. My husband came up with this, but that piece that any kind of practice takes practice. And we have to just keep coming back to that. So I just as to begin, I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement. I live where that star is in the upper northwest corner of Massachusetts. And it is, so if just for a quiet moment, it is with gratitude and humility that we acknowledge that we are learning, that I acknowledge that I'm learning, speaking and gathering on the ancestral homelands of the Mohican and Wabanaki people, who are the indigenous people of this land. This land gives me so much, and I want to pay honor and respect to the ancestors, past and present, as I commit to building a more inclusive and equitable space for all. So, how some of you may know me as a book artist and letterpress printer. This is a collection of some of the things I've made in the past few years. So you may have entered into knowing who I am through that. Some of you may know me from my collage work. These are some of the very first they're not the very first collages I made, but these are, I made these collages beginning in 2011. While I was at Yale, I had started to dive into collage work. It was my degree at Yale is a Master's of Art in Religion and the Visual Arts. And that idea of, I was really interested in looking at the sense of where the creative spark comes from. I wasn't really interested in, when you hear that word religion, I wasn't interested in religion, but I was interested in that creative spark that where does it come from? And I feel like that is some kind of divine universal thing. And it's not something that in the art world with a capital A that you can necessarily talk about. And so I didn't necessarily, and somehow collage is intertwined with that for me. So in 2011, I took a class with Karen at IS 183, and I started to make many of these collages that you see right here. And in many ways, when I say collage, I'm really talking about mixed media, because if you look at these, you'll see there's a lot of other mediums besides collage. There's a lot of, I make a lot of dots with gesso. I collage paper, and then I paint the paper, and then I sand it away, and then I add more layers. And that's some of what I do. But this was some of the initial earlier collage work that I was doing. And it became clear to me actually this week that collage is this place where I can make art that is not about pressure. Collage became this place of healing and intuition and intuitive making. Listening to Darlene today talk during her intuitive making and Karen's opening this morning, and then this talk I gave on Tuesday, it made me realize that I sort of look at art like I am a college professor that teaches art. And so there's art with a capital A for me. And then there's this other kind of art that I make that is what this is. And I can talk a little bit more about that art with a capital A if that's of interest later. So this is where I sort of started with collage. And then these are, this is this past year's 2021's Advent calendar collage a day. And so I started doing these collages in 2012, where every day during Advent, I would make a collage. And when I first started doing it, I would write a blog post. So this is a screenshot from my website and from 2018. And it's really tiny text. And but the more important piece of it was I would write something of a pep talk. And that pep talk in these blogs was really more for me than anything else, but I shared them with the world. And back when people used to read blog posts. So I did this from 2012 to 2018. In 2019, I'd stopped doing the blog thing and I did this. So I created a kind of a prompt and a theme and a prompt that I shared with people going through that time period, that Advent collage a day calendar thing. And people posted, followed along with me. I know Karen did. I think Karen did all of these. Maybe Pat, maybe you did some of these. I can't remember. And then in 2020, I did something. Is that right? That was 2019. And then in 2020, I made these advent calendar cards, and that was trying to figure out what this meant for me. I started to I was just trying to figure that out. All of this just to say is that this practice, this advent calendar practice, led me to this book. And so this is not the cover. This is another interior page. I'm not exactly sure where in the book this is, but the book is really made up of a lot of the collages that I made during that Advent period, as well as that writing. And we'll look at that a little bit later. But for now, let's look at the figure. Before we get to that, though, I want to share the work of 3 different artists. And this is a little collage history. On the left, with the HH, is Hannah Hawk. In the middle is Romer Bearden. And on the far right is Raoul Hausmann. Hannah Hawk and Raoul Hausmann, they're from the kind of 1920s, 1930s. And Romer Bearden was working really sort of mid-century to the latter part of the 20th century. And I wanted to just start with these because these are images in collage, figure in the collage that are some of my go-to favorite images of all time. I really like the way that they're juxtapositioning size and shape and putting different parts together. Romer Bearden, if you're not familiar with his work, has some other collage pieces where he's really taking eyes from some images and mouths from other images, kind of like Raoul Hausmann and Hannah Hawk are doing. But these to me are three of my guiding lights when it comes to collage. And what I'm going to look at when we're looking at these collage images, I really want to talk a little bit about the ways different artists use collage material to play with the figure. So, for example, Connor Fib Dainty. So he goes by Fib on Instagram and has 500,000 followers or something ridiculous. But what I love about this, and actually a lot of the images I'm going to show you really look at juxtaposition. And I love that the juxtaposition of size and scale. And so this tiny little figure on the sand with those flowers all and the butterfly in the back is really, it's just one way of playing with the figure in collage. And all these images are in the Raoul Hausmann, Hannah Hawk, and Romer Bearden. That is not in my book, but all these other images are. And this piece by Laura Weiler, she's on, I think it's Cut and Placed, Placed on Instagram. And one of the things I really like about this is, well, here, I mean, can you figure out what she's doing here? How did she make this collage? Does anybody want to try to figure out?
I could.
Yeah.
Say, oh wait, am I muted? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear someone. Yeah.
So it looks like she used the 2 bathing beauties and cut them out of the beach picture, and then use the negative space as 2 more figures.
Yeah.
With the background color coming through.
Yeah. And I like how she has, the figure in the red was on the right in the original image, and then she put her next to the other person. I just love the way of doing that. It's so simple, right? It's a simple way of taking an image. And just even thinking about that, how might you be able to use that in your own practice as a collage artist? It's super simple, but I think there's some big impact there. And all of these are direct pictures from the book. And so with this one of the things that I really love is, again, we're looking at that sense of the juxtaposition, but I really like how this figure is coming out of this flat shape up here. And that place of when I make collages, I'm not necessarily thinking about narrative or a story. And I think once you add the figure into it, you start to do that. And so with this one, we could start to make all kinds of connections. So, I mean, here, 1 or 2 people, when you see this, what are some of the things that come to mind as far as what's happening in this picture?
Well, you see form, which is 3D. So that makes sense for her to be diving out of that hole. And then the shape, which is the circle.
Yeah. I love that, that like diving out of the hole, like what, and we could change that bottom, right? This whole bottom could be anything. And how might that change the story? This just makes me so happy when I see this picture. Again, that sense of juxtaposition and looking for images, right? So finding the right images. And I think that's a big part of being a collage artist is having the right image at the right time. And I bet he had this image of this woman for a while and was like, okay, waiting for that right picture to come into my life. And then here it is. And that sense of really getting things right in the exact spot. I don't think collage is something that it's not something that you can plan in the way that you can plan other things. He could have in his head, I want to do something like this, but it's really waiting and looking for those images to come into your life. This piece by Brandon Brewer, again, that sense of how do we use size and scale to play around with something? And so this is actually, I think it's 3 or 4 different images that have been placed together. And by kind of shifting the way the dress is, that's a separate piece, and then those legs are separate pieces, creating that kind of sense on that flat blue. In some ways, we're kind of still coming back to this idea of shape and form. We've got this flat background and this dimensional figure that's sort of coming out, and there's playing with that sense of foreshortening where those feet are bigger than the head, and like much bigger than the head. And that really gives us that sense of movement and size and scale. One thing I should say is that, which I'll show in a couple more slides, is with each one of these images in the book, there's sort of a prompt that goes along with it. But this one is really fun to start to think about how it was made, in finding that figure and then cutting different parts and pieces to nestle it in. If you look at all of these images that so far, there's not a lot of pieces of paper. They're really, really super simple, yet at the same time, and actually some of them might be digital collages, I'm not totally sure. But at the same time, we know that these are things that have been placed together. And that is really a lot of what collage is, right? It's cutting and pasting and putting things that aren't necessarily meant to be together or were necessarily intended to be together, putting them together to create new meaning. And I even wonder about the hair on this one, if that hair is added. What do you all think? Kind of looks maybe. Hard to know, right?
Yeah.
And I think at Collage Club, I think you all have explored this artist before, Johanna Goodman, and that piece of what can we use? What are other materials that we can use to create the sense of the figure? And so like creating a dress or creating clothing. And then so she has that head and putting the arms on the waterfall and then the feet below. This is kind of getting at the heart of what I do. And when I just see, look at this little person right there, that's also just fun to see that person looking at that figure. This last one is of other people's work, is by this artist named Sarah Jarrett. And this is really kind of a lot of what I do when I use the figure, is that it's looking at this kind of silhouette image and then cutting that silhouette image out of other materials. And this I'm guessing is probably a digital collage, just looking at those, the way the tree branches are, but I'm not 100% sure. Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorite images. So how I use the figure. So this first image that I had on the initial slide and I have right here, that figure is what you see on the right-hand side. So I cut her out, I don't even know how many years ago. And so I trace her onto other materials and cut her out and then add her into collages. I never have used her on her own. She's really this kind of source material for other things. And this figure here, this nude on the right, that is the first figure that I started doing this with. And this figure here, this one where dream is, it may not look like it's the same figure, but it's the same figure. I just shifted the arm a little bit. But this is from, I don't even know. I think it's like from like something in the 1950s or 1960s, some art magazine. I found it and I have never cut it out. I just have that image. I have it in a very safe, special place because that image is this source material for me for so many collages. Here it is. So this is a page spread. This is an example of a page spread from the book. And here is that same figure where I traced it and cut it out on a piece of black paper. And what a big part of the book, the 55 prompts to jumpstart your practice, they have a mantra, and typically one of my collages and then a collage of somebody else using the prompt or a collage that either used the prompt or appear to use the prompt in a different way. And I liked how this example where, again, there's not a lot of paper here, right? The negative space, the space that is the empty space, is just as important as the space where there is things. So this next slide is sort of a compendium of many of the images that use that particular stencil that over the years. And so this, I don't even know when some of these started, but this my collage practice is really something that especially during that Advent period of time, is how I start my morning. There's some kind of reading that I often do or some kind of meditation that goes along with it. And then it really is, what are the materials? What is the reading? What is that telling me to do? Very rarely do I come in with like, oh, I'm going to use this figure and make this. It usually starts to get directed by a piece of paper, or I'll give myself a kind of a prompt. So I might do something like this one where it says build a background that feels like a landscape, and then I'll add something at a final focal point. And so then this says add a final layer made from strips of a previous discarded artwork. Turn each no into a yes. Yeah. This image is just kind of to give you a sense of what are the kinds of images that work for this. So the image on the left is, it looks like it's a slightly photoshopped version of this collage where I found this shape and I cut it out and added it to the collage. But what I'm looking for, and that's what I'm looking for in all of these, is I'm looking for good negative space. I'm looking for spaces where there's a cutout, where you can start to see body parts. If for example, her arms were quite close to her head and you didn't have that negative space there, it probably wouldn't work. And so that's the most important thing for me, is looking for these images that have some kind of, like, I think this one, I haven't actually tried this one, but I really, really like it. I really like how that image looks, but I haven't tried it on sort of the patterned paper. And so sometimes it's wait, let me go back here. So here, like, I'll cut it out of a patterned paper, in this case, a piece of text, in this case, a piece of blue paper. This one right here is a magazine paper that has that kind of stripe in the background. This is a piece of paste paper. This one this is great that these two are next to each other. So this is the cutout from this. So sometimes I will do that, where I'll save that material and use it in a different collage. These are all, I think, from the same year. I get into a thing and in each year. So like this, I don't necessarily use this particular shape anymore. There's other shapes that I've started to use more. This is a shape that I often use as well. And so sometimes what I will do is I'll create a physical stencil for the of the figure, whatever it was. So this was from some magazine. I don't have the image anymore, but I have the stencil. And then that way it's on that stencil, that plasticky material. So I can literally stencil it, or in this case, I can put it onto a piece of paper, trace it, and then cut that shape out. On the right, I made the collage, and then I added the stencil using gesso. I really, really like adding gesso. And then some, those little black marks are little drawing pieces. So these are some of the examples of pages in the book where there is that kind of mantra and sort of a pep talk, and then this prompt of ways of possibly working with material. This is a page spread of one of the how-to sections. So for the stencil, and this is one of, I wish I would have saved this picture. So I did this for the photo shoot. I found this image in, I think it was in like the most random, I think of some kind of computer software magazine. And it turned into this great stencil. And I haven't used it too much, but I walk you through, how do you make a stencil? How do you create that in a, either for this kind of a literal stencil or for cutting out of paper. So this is the cover of the book, which is super exciting. And this is one of the, this is in the introduction. And I think a big part of what what the book for me is this piece here, that it doesn't matter what you make. All that matters is that you make something. And Darlene talked a lot, and I think Karen maybe touched on this today too, but Darlene definitely talked a little bit about that piece of judgment, how we often, that judge is on in our brains a lot when we're working as creative people. And how can we turn that off? How could we turn that off and really just not be attached to it and to just make something? And so a lot of this book is really about that. This is one of this is the kind of the intro to those 55 prompts, kind of the quick sort of thing of just really giving yourself some parameters. And a lot of times that I will do this when I'm doing that Advent time, or even whenever I'm just making collage, is using scraps from your most recent collage process, or taking the first 3 papers from your collage bag and using only those papers. Darlene did this great thing today where she chose a word and then chose another word, and she didn't tell us until the end about how those words were connected. And it was really fun. I'm not going to say it just in case someone ever decides to do that, so you can be surprised, but it was really, there's so many different things that you can do. I'm not sure, I think I meant this to be someplace else, but here's another page spread. And I love this figure, the way that these are different pieces of paper, but they work so well together. She's lined them up so nicely. And just that sense of the old and the new coming together, and that her color palette, in the way of making this layered background, but then still having this focal point, really just some fun things to think about as you think about your own collage practice. Oh, I forgot that I wanted to talk about this too. So in the book, I profile a number of people, and it's kind of crazy. So people who have been really influential to me, and there's four of the profiles work with the figure. So some of you may have worked with Susie Banks-Baum in her Advent Dark journal, and she does this piece where we're taking 2 figures and kind of putting them together. And so this is a prompt that is in the book from Susie. And then this woman, Evita Tenzo, she's in Texas, and I really like her work because it reminds me a lot of what Romare Bearden does. She paints her papers and then she cuts them and creates these wonderful portraits. And so that's another way of working with the figure. And while Karen's pieces are really about mail art, I love that she's also working with the figure in these pictures. And I particularly love the kitty mama on the right. I've always loved that image. But that place of, putting different parts and pieces together, and how can you create something that is your kind of in your thing. And then this is something that's really sort of super fun. So Laura actually lives in Great Barrington. I haven't actually ever met her, but she was introduced to me by Lindsay Thompson, who runs the 100-Day Project. I had asked Lindsay for some artists who might be good to feature in my book. And she sent me two people's names. Laura's was one of them. And this other person, E-Bond, both of these, E-Bond lives in California and Laura lives here in Great Barrington. And I know both of them by like one person, which is crazy. So Laura, I know a lot of people, we have a lot of people in common that we know here in the Berkshires. And then E-Bond went to the same MFA program that I did. And I just thought that was really fun to find that out after I include them in the book. But I thought this was also a different way of playing with the figure. I really like this one down here in the bottom where the face is the body, right? It's really a super fun image. And just that piece of what are different ways that we can be absurd and juxtapose and put things together. And I love how she's doing that. All right, so we have about 20 minutes. This leads to the actual book, to page through the book. Are you still seeing my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So this, and you're still seeing it as I go through the book?
It's not moving. It's on What Do You Love?
Oh, okay. So this is the digital version of the book, this sort of preview of the book. And I'm not going to go through the whole book, but just I've talked a little bit and shown you some examples of these 55 prompts. But the book is really great. It has that introduction and then a chapter about building your materials. And I think about materials as more than just the physical tools, but also the building blocks of design and composition, and then different techniques. So the techniques go from collage building to low-tech printmaking, other techniques, text, and then also making some books. Pat Moser took a class with me at Snow Farm a number of years ago. And there's a lot of the things that we do in this book that I taught at that class. So it's just filled with wonderful images of so many different artists. And I think that for me is one of the best parts of this book, is that you'll see that throughout the book, there's names here. And those are the different people's artwork. If there isn't a name, and like this person, we've become Instagram friends. It's so cool. If there isn't a name, then that's my work. So there isn't a name here, so this is mine, but there's a name here, and so that's this person's. And here's that fib stuff. So this is the book. I'm not going to, I'm going to stop my share. And I'm going to open my, I'm going to open my envelope. Maybe while I'm opening my envelope, does anybody have any questions?
I kind of have a question.
Okay.
In the beginning of the talk, you mentioned
Yeah! Oh my God, it's beautiful.
Right?
That is so exciting.
It's better in person.
I'm sure. It looks good from over here too.
Collage Your Life.
So great.
That's so exciting. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Brielle.
So I was going to say in the very beginning, you mentioned this concept of art with a capital A, and I just wanted to jump back to that and ask what you meant by that and have you elaborate a little bit.
Yeah. So something that I have discovered about myself, and this is actually, so I did the artist way a million years ago when I was in my late 20s. And then during the pandemic, I did it again. And one of the things that kind of stood out for me was the pressure that I put on myself as a college professor, that, I have to exhibit, I have to do this, I have like everything I make has to somehow have a space for it in my life as a college professor. And that becomes like this art with the capital A, that somehow it has to be a certain way, it has to fulfill a certain thing. And in doing that, I feel like it has to be super conceptual, it has to have this, it has to have that. And there's that, the part of my heart isn't necessarily woven in the same way as it is when I'm making in a more intuitive way. And not that like I don't want to have like a good thing and a bad thing, but I definitely feel like there, for me, there's this capital A art that is sort of clouded in a lot of pressure. And I don't feel that with my collage making. There's probably more there.
Thank you for that. Thank you for elaborating on that idea a little bit. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I came a little late. How long did it take you
How long did to
create your book?
So that's a really great question. So I got the contract just as COVID was starting in March of 2020. And I really worked on it June, July, and the first couple weeks of August. That's when I was really, really working on it. But all of these prompts, these writings, those all are from blog posts that I had written beginning in 2012. So I have this longtime assistant. Her name is Angela. Angela went through my website and she copied all of those blog posts and put them into a document for me over the years. Like that was one of her jobs. And so it's in some ways it took me 3 months to write this book. In other ways, I started in 2012.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of that combination of so many different things that during that time in 2020, that summer of 2020, it was really kind of putting it together. And then that doesn't count what happens once you hand off the manuscript to my editor. Then there's like this back and forth where they go through, like, I know, you just published a book, Evelyn. So I think you probably know some of this too, where there's edits, there are things that happen, there's questions, you have to answer them, you have to fix things. So, but the actual writing part of it was that 2.5 months, but times 8 years. Other questions?
I'll just make a comment off of that. It almost sounds like your process for the book was a collage in and of itself. If you think about it, you collaged your blog, you collaged your other work.
You're right.
That's
yeah.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. In the chat, Lucy says, can you talk about Upkeep and making a daily practice? Like, how you do during Have a Habit. How do you do it with all that you do? So I think for me, the most important thing is to do it as soon as I wake up. So and I definitely fall off the wagon, but my morning practice is I wake up, I do some very short morning pages writing. I don't do the full 3 pages. Does everybody know morning pages? Julia Cameron's Artist Way morning pages, where you freehand write whatever it is that comes to you. You kind of brain jump things out. I do sort of an abbreviated version of that, and then I come into my studio, and it depends on what I'm working on. Sometimes I am painting. Right now I'm doing the 100-day project, and I'm doing these little compass rose drawings every day. Sometimes it's a collage practice, but it's that first 2 hours of the morning is the time when I'm doing this. And the thing is like, this is what I'm doing this. This is not what I would call art with a capital A. This is art that feeds my soul and feeds my being. And that, because like for the art with a capital A is like my day job. So that is this different, I don't know. I'm trying to, this is something that just started to get revealed to me on Tuesday. So I'm still trying to figure out this art with a capital A versus the other, like trying to figure out the right way to talk about it. So you all are part of my guinea pigs of trying to figure that out.
I kind of have another question to piggyback on that one that Lucy had asked. If you have sort of a daily practice and you do mess up or kind of fall off the wagon and miss a day or kind of get distracted, how do you motivate or encourage yourself to sort of jump back in? And is that related to that idea of art with the lowercase a, and that it's a soul feeding practice and not for, so serious? How do you do that?
Yeah. I think at this point in my life, like I've been working as an artist for really working as an artist for how many years? Like 15 years. And I've seen that, I know that if there's a period of time that is particularly stressful or I am not making the time for it, I don't beat myself up for it. I acknowledge, right now I'm not able to do this. But I know it'll come back. Sometimes it's like health related. There have definitely been times where I haven't wanted to make something because I wasn't able to, and then had to work through that. But I think the piece that I've learned over the years is that I can't be upset with myself about it, that I acknowledge it, but I also can't let it be too long of a time period without practicing, because I know that I'm a much happier person and much nicer, kinder person when I'm doing all of that regular practice than when I am not doing it. And sometimes if I can sense that it's been a while, what I often will do is, okay, 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes. Even 5 minutes will be enough. And then usually what happens is 5 minutes becomes 10. And then it's like, oh my God, I got to go to work. I gotta get going. And, sometimes what does happen is like, shoot, now I'm going to be late for work. So, but it is that I think the most important piece is to not beat myself up. I think a lot of people sometimes do that. Oh, I should have done that. Why am I not doing this? Oh, I'm and like that part is like, okay, whatever, you haven't, big deal. Maybe tomorrow, or not maybe tomorrow I will, maybe only 5 minutes, but
yeah,
it's hard.
Yeah. And that's as like in my practice as an artist too, I get that kind of down talk to yourself, but it's nice, your advice to just sort of let it go. Can't get upset with yourself.
Yeah, you can't get upset about it. And because like sometimes it's like things out of your control. Like maybe you oversleep or like your cat throws up or like you have
Life gets in the way.
Right, life happens, like a pipe breaks in your basement and you're like, okay, now I'm definitely not doing that. So like you have to, I don't know. Yeah.
I sense when you say art with a capital A and then you go to the lowercase and the soft edges, that's a beautiful vision.
Yeah. It's true, right? Because the capital A is that, yeah.
And even when you write it in cursive, there's a little tail that gives you so much leeway. I can't wait to read your book. Have it in my hands.
Yes. Thank you.
Melanie, where can people get your book?
Well, right now you can pre-order it anywhere. Like you can pre-order it, Barnes and Noble, Powell's, Amazon. You know, I can put I'll put the Storey link to it in the chat.
And you mentioned pre-order. So when is the official release?
So the official release is June 21st. Okay. And if you are in the Berkshires, I am going to have a party.
Oh, wow.
June 21st.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm not, and like it's going to be kind of an all day thing. So you can pick and choose what you want to do. I will hopefully start putting out what that is in the beginning, like on June 1st or June 2nd. But it should be a fun day of possibility. And I think I might also have like a virtual thing as well, because I know that there's some people other places. I haven't figured it. I'm not totally sure yet. I have lots of fantasies.
And how, if people want to keep up to date on that information and what you're doing, is it best to check your website, follow you on Instagram?
That's a great question. So there's three different ways. One, you can just follow go to my website. So on my website, I have a tab called News, and I'll be posting things there. I will also be posting to Instagram. And in my bio on Instagram, you can sign up for my newsletter. That is where probably the most information will be. I might even be able to put that sign up. Let's see if I can put that sign up in the chat if you want to, if you don't get my newsletter. I send something out maybe once, maybe twice a month, but I try not to send out too many things. Yeah. And here is that. So if you want to be on my newsletter, you can go to that last link in the chat.
Yeah, she's putting things in the chat. And if you don't have your chat popped out, if you hover over your screen at the bottom, there's a little emblem that says chat. And if you click on that, it should pop out a side bar that has all of the links in it today. We probably have time for another question or comment if anybody has any other questions to ask or things to comment on.
A question that came up earlier in the week when you were doing your presentation, which I think is an interesting one, is who do you think your audience for this book is or will be? Or did you visualize that as you were making it?
Yeah, that's a great question, Karen. I think I was thinking of my students when I made this book, and not just my student, but any student of collage when I say student, I don't necessarily just mean my students at MCLA. I mean, I think of myself as a forever student, that person who is on their path towards practice and creativity. So I think that is who, because I think there's technique in here, but there's also those bits of those mantras and that encouragement. And so I think it's also for anybody who whenever you need a piece of encouragement, like it's almost like, I don't know if any of you ever do this with books of poetry where you kind of like, oh, I'll just open to this page and then it says, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so what does that have to say for me today if I read that? So I think that's also how I feel this is that it's this opportunity to almost be like an oracle card.
Great. That's a great answer. It's wonderful. I think that picking out, one of those mantra prompts or questions is really a great way to get started on collage. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you have so much inspiration in that book. It's wonderful. When you talk about how long it took really for the process of it and how it includes the development of your blogs and the development of the classes that you talk to your students. I mean, it's just a really great distillation of all of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't wait to have it.
I can't wait for you to have it too. Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Melanie,
Thank you.
for being with us tonight. This was just wonderful and inspiring, and it's so nice to see you and have you here. And thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.